right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. And today on the show, we're getting to talk about David Fincher. It's been a long time since we've gotten to do that, but we are talking his new movie, The Killer, starring Michael Fassbender. And joining me to talk about it is Carlo from the Movie Loop podcast. We got a lot of great puzzle pieces to get into on this one, so stay tuned. It's a fun conversation. Before we get to it, I do want to remind you, as always, to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together. Wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, hit that follow or subscribe button and make sure you get to know about all the new episodes that are on the way, because I actually have like 6, I think, at this point that are all recorded and ready to go. So they're just going to be coming rapid fire for the next couple of months. But yeah, make sure you're subscribed. You could also follow us on social media at Piecing Pod and join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we continue the conversation about all the movies we talk about here on the show. You also might be hearing this on our Patreon. If you are, thank you for subscribing. And if you're not subscribed, then you're not hearing this on the Patreon. But if you're hearing this after the fact, you should subscribe to our Patreon. It's the Produced by David Rosen Patreon, where I post bonus and advanced content from Piecing It Together, Awesome Movie Year, and from my music career. Lots of great stuff over there. So check it out, patreon.com/bydavidrosen. I do appreciate the support, but also just keep on listening, keep on sharing the show, send in your puzzle pieces. All these things are incredibly appreciated. So thank you for being out there. And with all that said, let's get to The Killer. All right, it's time to talk about The Killer, and we've got Carlo from the Movie Loot here. Carlo, how's it going?
I'm doing good, man. I'm glad to be here, back here with a better film than Spiral.
It's been way too long. And yeah, I was just thinking about it. Spiral was like over 2 years
Yeah,
ago. And I was thinking about this like right before you jumped on the call. I feel like 7 was like our first puzzle piece on that one. So it's funny that like here you are after all these years, there's finally a new David Fincher film that's not a, like a true story of the making of a movie kind of thing. Back to basics thriller type
yep,
movie. And here you are to help me piece this one together. So
yeah.
this will be
And,
fun for
and I'm a
sure.
Fincher fan, so I'm definitely looking forward to it. I begged for this, I think.
Yeah, I had a few people actually ask me about being on this one. So yeah, it'll be a fun one to talk about though for sure. And yeah, I think this is actually the first because, like I said, oh well, actually no, I did do an episode on Mank, so never mind. I was gonna say I think this is the first Fincher film I've done, but I did do Mank. I just barely remember that movie, so I barely remember doing the
Take
episode.
from that what you
But
may.
yeah, absolutely. This one though definitely hits you a little bit harder, and I think I'll remember this one for a while. But I think we should talk quickly before we get into puzzle pieces just about Fincher and the fact that it's like kind of his return to this kind of a movie. I feel like, and I don't know if you might have any Fincher in your puzzle pieces, so maybe we'll be getting to some Fincher in that way as well. But just how you feel this fits in for his movies.
I think it's very much within what Fincher traditionally does, because Fincher, if you look at all his films, pretty much all of his films deal with isolated people and
Hmm.
or obsessed people. All of
Sure.
his films, every
Yeah.
single one. And the killer here is like that. He's isolated. He lives alone. He's pretty much isolated from everybody, and he's obsessed with this perfection and all his meticulous routines to do his job. So it definitely fits in that trend of Fincher. In what I think that it's maybe a departure, and you kind of touched on that, is that Fincher has been moving. I commented on this on one of my episodes on my podcast, and Fincher has been moving away from more genre films or typical thrillers that he did in the 90s, like Seven, The Game, and Panic Room, which I think is his lighter film.
Yeah.
And he has been moving to more heavy stuff, more serious stuff, starting with Zodiac, then Social Network, and you have Mank. So I think this is a return to something like you said, basic, more pulpy, more simple, lighter. Maybe it's not precisely light, but
Sure.
there really isn't that much to chew at. There is. I mean, there are layers to this guy, but it's probably a simpler film than
Yeah.
Mank or Social Network or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, and I think it's important to say like you said and like I said earlier, return to basics more than like return to form, which I've heard some people say, and I don't think that's correct because he's always been on top of his
Yeah,
game.
yeah,
It's just a return to something that we all kind of associate him with, and he's kind of like, well, I've been doing this other stuff. I know you guys want this, so here it is. And so now he's doing that thing that we all kind of want to see him do,
yeah.
and
It's a very stripped down film.
yes. Oh, it absolutely is. And long stretches of just watching Michael Fassbender plan out these killings, which who doesn't want to spend time watching Michael Fassbender do stuff while the Smiths play? So, you
Yeah,
know, let's
yeah.
get into some puzzle pieces, though. What do you got for your first piece?
Okay, well, I guess I'm gonna steal the obvious one first because I watched this film. I watched this film for the first time the day before I watched The Killer because I knew it was gonna be a puzzle piece. Everybody's mentioning it, and it's Le Samurai from 1967. This is a film from Jean-Pierre Melville. I hadn't seen it, but it came highly recommended. A lot of people have had mentioned it to me a bunch of times. And when I said, I'm going to talk about The Killer, so why not watch this film? It's November, so we're celebrating November as well, and Le Samurai is a
Sure,
neo
yeah.
noir, and it's Fincher himself has spoken about how this film inspired The Killer, and it follows this skilled and meticulous killer that lives in solitude in a very bare bones apartment. Have you seen it? Have you seen Le Samurai?
I haven't, and I was actually also thinking about watching it in preparation for this because, yeah, it's one of those movies that like everybody talked about in the lead up to this, even
Yeah.
before the movie was out. Like this is obviously going to be his kind of, playing with that same kind of a thing. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you're bringing it up here.
No, so he lives in a bare bones apartment, which kind of mirrors the. It's not his house, but the place where the killer starts in this um, random office space, rental office space. Um, but he lives in this isolation, and he has to deal with a hit that goes wrong. It finds himself pursued by different subjects. The mirroring goes also to the clothing because like, if you've seen any promotional picture of Le Samurai, you're gonna see that the guy wears a hat, and that's like his trademark. Every time he puts his hat, he likes kind of like flips like the rim of the hat,
Sure,
and Michael Fassbender wears a hat often, not a cool hat. It's a more of a dopey hat, but
sure.
he wears a hat. And even at one point when he's getting ready, he gets dressed and he puts on the hat. He does the same thing with the rim of the hat. At one point, he's a bit subtle. It's not that
Mhm.
obvious, but he does it, and it's like a bit of an homage to this. So definitely Le Samurai.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, it's definitely on my list to catch up on, and I believe that this is, it's one of those movies that comes up often and has been such an inspiration for so many neo noir style films, and
Yeah.
anything that's come in the last 20, 30 years that tries to evoke this kind of a vibe. Definitely, you can go back to that. So, great one to bring up first here. I'm going to go with another one that I feel like is kind of obvious as well, but I feel like it's got to be a part of the conversation, and that's 1981's Thief from Michael
Oh,
Mann,
yeah.
starring James Caan. As far as like these intricate, methodical, just ultra specific guys who are just like really good at what they do,
Yeah.
and spending so much time with them and just watching them figure it all out and do the thing, and watching them figure it out is just as exciting as the actual act that ends up finally happening. Of course, Michael Fassbender's character here, everything kind of gets screwed up, and then he ends up constantly having to kind of fix it over and over again, whereas James Caan's character in Thief, I mean, he's just he's killing it. You know,
He's
he's
on
just
top of it.
he's
Yeah,
yeah. He's you can't be as cool as James Caan, no matter
yeah,
even if you're Michael Fassbender. You know, so that is one place where these two movies they definitely differ. But then on top of that, you also have cinematography, the score, the look of the whole thing.
yeah.
I feel like Fincher is probably inspired by Michael Mann in a lot of his movies throughout the years, but a lot in this one as well.
Yeah, and one thing that since you mentioned it, I hadn't thought of it actually, but now that you mention it, I can definitely see the similarities. And in Thief, James Caan is going a bit through a bit of a reckoning with his age and how the time is passing, and he's like trying to he says something to that effect. I think it's my favorite line. I don't remember it exactly, but he says to his girlfriend, "This is what I do. Basically, this is what I do,"
Right.
and I'm already
Yeah.
getting old, and there's nothing more than I can do. And Michael Fassbender is going probably through something because he's I'm not gonna say he's old because actually I found out that he's my age, so I'm not gonna say he's old, but
Yeah, sure.
he's a veteran. He's more of an aging hitman, and the fact that he botches this attempt, and not only this attempt, but he botches several things on the way, which is also a bit of a comic, a bit of that Fincher dark humor,
Sure.
um, but it's also some sort of a reckoning with his age. Maybe I should step out, or maybe this is my time, which in the end he kind of does, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was just wondering to myself, like, would James Caan's character in Thief order parts from Amazon if that movie was set today? Like, it seems maybe, I don't know, there's a possibility, but
It's hilarious. The bit where he buys was it Home Depot, the tote and the stuff, the
yeah,
nail gun. And I thought this is very much of the time because before COVID, you couldn't do that kind of thing maybe that often. Order and
yeah,
they will bring it up to your car.
yeah.
But now, I mean, I do it all the time now. I haven't stepped in a store. I mean, I don't step in stores as often as I did before COVID. Now I order it and I just pick it up. I don't have to get out.
Yeah, we're all very lazy now, but even hitmen. But let,
Yeah.
let's go to your next puzzle piece.
Okay, so my second one, I don't know if it's a bit of a stretch, but I don't see it. I think it's right there, and it's Kill Bill from Quentin Tarantino.
Sure,
I mean, Kill Bill is about a killer. The bride is a killer, and there's several parallelisms that I have. First, in Kill Bill, you have the bride. She's a killer that tries to lay low. Then something goes wrong, and she has to go after those that wrong her. Here you have this killer. Something goes wrong, and then he tries to lay low, but then he finds out what they did to his girlfriend, and then he decides to go after them. So there's the first parallelism. The second thing that came to my mind was how the bride makes her list and says, "Okay, this is where I go. One, two, three, four,
sure.
five," and that's sort of what Michael Fassbender does. He makes it. We don't see the list, but that's pretty much the way the film is divided in these chapters. I'm gonna see the lawyer, then I'm gonna see the brute, and then I'm gonna see the expert, and then the client. He has this
Yeah.
list, this ladder that he has to go through, bum, 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 which I think reminded me from the get go uh, of Kill Bill.
Yeah. No, that's great. All those comparisons make so much sense, and you almost wonder, like, I if this wasn't, David Fincher, because this is based on a graphic novel, I believe.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, if some other director had taken this on, might it have taken, like, a kind of back and forth kind of approach to the storytelling, something more like Kill Bill, where they kind of mix up the chapters just to kind of play with the form and all that? It would have been an interesting approach to a movie like this, to a story like this. Someone who messes up that one big hit and then has to like kind of go back and forth, and we see like everything out of order. But regardless, though, I mean, Kill Bill, what one of the best of the last 20 years of
yeah,
hitman
yeah,
movies, hit
definitely.
woman. But yeah, no, great one to bring up for sure. I'm going to go to TV for my next one. And this
Hmm.
kind of goes along with a lot of what I was talking about with Thief, but I'm going to go with Better Call Saul, the Breaking Bad spinoff, but not
Okay.
for the main Saul, storyline, but for the Mike Ehrmantraut storyline, who is another character coming over from Breaking Bad, who we see his story kind of crossing paths with Jimmy McGill, Saul Goodman, as well as it did back on Breaking Bad with Walter White, and everything that he's going through. Again, you could just sit and watch him coming up with a plan. You could get like a whole bottle episode of just him like planning some shit out, and it would be just as entertaining as anything that you would see in like a really action-packed episode of the show. And watching him like come up with a plan, it's clever as hell. Like how did they not do that in another movie, like we're talking about ordering parts on Amazon. I mean, that's
Yeah.
something right off the bat that was like that's just great, like, little
Yeah.
things like that, little touches, and also, I don't know, listening to the Smiths the whole fucking movie like that. That's like just like a little touch. That's like such a interesting, weird character bit. The kind of things that you could totally picture on a show like Better Call Saul, which is one of the best shows of the last 10 years.
I need to finish it. Mike is my favorite character from the whole franchise, but I
Yeah,
need to finish Better Call Saul. I not intentionally, but I kind of got lost with other stuff, and I need to watch. I think I got
it
to
happens.
the half of season 4 or season 5, and I need to watch that second half and the last season. But I need to get to it definitely. And since you
Yeah,
mentioned the Smiths, a funny thing is that I don't think I had listened to the Smiths consciously. Um, but now I have the final song. I have it stuck in my mind.
yeah, yeah. I've always,
There's a
I always
double decker bus. I have it stuck in my
Nice.
mind.
Nice. Yeah, they will get stuck in there for sure. I'm speaking of, just on a little tangent, like I was never really a Smiths guy. Like, my favorite band is The Cure, and
Yeah,
also Depeche Mode is like right up there. And the Smiths were always like kind of down the list for me, but it's still, I mean, the music is great, and I got
yeah.
to see this in the theater, luckily, and hearing, Smith songs for 90 minutes in a theater was pretty great. So,
Yeah, and to keep it in on topic, I think the way that Fincher used the sound and music was great,
sure.
because it was very clever and intentional, that the songs that he chose for every little bit, every moment that he put certain songs, and you listen to the lyrics and you say, okay, this song fits what's happening to the
Yeah.
character. um, and the way he used sound, different sounds, even the uh, something that I don't think I had seen before, but the way that he played with the sound, from the perspective of when you're watching the point of view of the killer, you're listening to the song full, but when it changes the perspective, you listen to the sound, like it was muffled.
Right,
Um,
out of just the headphones, like,
yes,
or
yes.
yeah,
I thought that was really clever, and he kept going. He does that. He did that a couple of times, and I thought it was interesting. And but all the sound in general, that the way that he
yeah,
used it, I thought it was clever.
absolutely, absolutely. That'll actually come up in another of my pieces later. But what do you have for your
Okay.
next piece?
Okay, so for my third one, I have The Day of the Jackal from 1973. It's yet another film with a very skilled and meticulous killer, that is hired by this group to kill, I think it's the president of France, or something like that. I don't remember. But the job goes wrong. So he finds himself trying to hide, and it's the same logistics of, I have to hide. He's very silent. I mean, he talks, but he doesn't talk that much. He's very cold, and he's pursued by this relentless cop, which is something that I'm not going to say that I missed it, but Michael Fassbender was always ahead of everybody, and you never see the law going to
Sure.
him. Which is something in Le Samurai. You had the same thing. Had a police officer that's right on top of the killer. Here in The Day of the Jackal, you have this police officer that's also on top of the killer. But anyway, all those things. This the skilled and meticulous killer that's really silent. That's hired by a group kill somebody, and then the job goes wrong, and he has to hide. The killer is very skilled, very talented, very precise. All that also reminded me of the movie. So yeah,
Yeah. No, this is the part where I admit that I've never seen The Day of the Jackal, but I have seen the Bruce Willis remake, The
the
Jackal.
Jackal. Yeah,
Yeah,
a
so
very long time ago. I don't remember it, but yeah,
yeah,
Richard
I
Gere.
yeah, yeah. I think somebody gets their arm blown off, if I remember
I
correctly. That
don't
might be a
remember.
different Bruce Willis movie, but yeah, I don't know. But no. There's so many like, and my next one's also going to be like another kind of Hitman type movie, but there's so many that fit in so well here, and it's such like a rich history of these kinds of Hitman
Yeah.
movies, like so absolutely great one to include on the list. The one that I was going to bring up next is Jim Jarmusch's Ghost Dog from
Okay.
1999.
Haven't seen it. Yeah.
Oh, oh,
I've
I
heard
love
great
Ghost
things
Dog.
about it, but yeah.
Forrest Whitaker is just so cool. He's just this very zen kind of dude who's just kind of hangs out. He's constantly just chilling and like hanging out with his pigeons, and it kind of in the way that Michael Fassbender is like doing yoga and stuff to make sure his heart rate is always like a perfect amount, so he'll be good and ready for whenever stuff goes down. Ghost Dog is just chill all the time. And when it comes time to do some violence, he is ready and he does it. And no one stands a chance against him because he is just always ready to go because he's just so chill all the rest of the time. And Forrest Whitaker's awesome in this role. And awesome soundtrack too. So that's another thing that you could kind of compare there. And definitely one of my favorite as far as these kinds of Hitman movies. Also very funny. Once shit goes down, there's definitely a lot of laughs in it. So it's a big recommendation from me.
Yeah. Jim Jarmusch is a bit of a blind spot for me. I've only seen, I think, one film of his, and
Mm.
it was a couple of years ago. Somebody recommended it to me for the same reason. I said I haven't seen any Jim Jarmusch, and I saw one of his first one, Down by Law. I
Oh
loved it.
yeah, it's good.
I
Really,
love that
really
film,
good.
really. Yeah. So I really need to get on more of his stuff. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome. What do you got
Okay.
next?
So for my next two, I think I'm going more a bit of curveballs.
Mm.
Um, so let's see if you see the connection. But I went with the Hurt Locker from 2008.
Okay.
Um, the 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 things that I had in mind first, you have another character that's very skilled in what he does. Obviously, in this case, the disarming bombs. He's more of a isolated as well. He has these issues with chain of command or whatever. But the bit that really clicked with me for to get this connection is more towards the end. And in the end, in the Hurt Locker, I'm going to spoil it for those. But in the end, this guy just can't cope with normal life. He goes back home. He's with his girlfriend or wife or whatever, and he just can't handle it. This normal life, and he gets back again in the war. In the Killer, this guy supposedly okay he finished the job, he killed everybody that he needed to kill, or he did what he needed to do, and he goes back to his wife, and you get this epilogue with his girlfriend, and you get this last shot, and I don't know if you got that, but that twitch in the end that he does when he's saying maybe I'm one of the many, and he does like a bit of a twitch with his eye that kind
Hmm.
of at least what I got from it is that he's not comfortable with this life.
Right.
He's not
Hmm.
comfortable with being at his home and being at peace. I know he's at peace when he's on a stakeout, when he's doing the job, and I kind of got that vibe from that, and I thought it was interesting.
That's great. That's great. I actually did not notice that, and I might have to rewatch the movie just because I want to see that, and I want to see if I
Yeah,
get that same vibe from him. But I could totally see that though, because somebody who's dedicated their entire life to something, as good as it looks to, be at that beautiful home,
yeah,
with your beautiful wife and
yeah.
everything. Like, yeah, I mean that's who he is. He knows it, so it totally makes sense. And yeah, Hurt Locker, great movie that doesn't come up enough on this show. So I'm glad you brought it up here. That's great.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna go Fincher on my next one.
Mm.
I'm going Fight Club for my next one here.
Oh,
Um, you know, first of all, and I said this on our trailer episode, but the outfits that he wears reminded me a little bit of Brad Pitt's ridiculous outfits in Fight Club, like these just obnoxious clothing and like just who is this guy like that he actually dresses like this, but more so than that, it's just the constant voiceover. It's like these quippy, clever musings on the world around
yeah.
our main character. It's never really talking about himself that much. It's more so just thinking out loud about like everything else going on in the world while kind of passing the time, while just going about their business, while the plot is just moving along on its own pace. We are just hearing this person's inner monologue as they just think about the world, and it's wonderfully written because there's so many great little bits in there, and sometimes too much voiceover can be a hindrance on a movie, but in both of these movies, also Gone Girl's another one that does it really well. um it's done so well that it really like kind of just adds to the character. You just get such a sense of who they are, and you find yourself like kind of relating to a lot of their things, even if they might be kind of full of shit a lot of the time too.
No, yeah, I definitely see it. I think it's the narration and his musings, very random musings at times, where just an example of something that I mentioned a while ago. That bit of Fincher dark humor and very dry humor.
Yeah.
Um, there were some good moments of that. I think the one that got me the biggest chuckle was the guy in the elevator that said, "You need some help with that, getting rid of that body."
Yeah, that's great. That is such a Fincher joke. That is
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah,
Okay, so
absolutely.
for my next one is a bit of a bit of another curveball, but it's
Hmm.
yet another film about a killer, a determined killer going through a series of targets, and I went with No Country for Old Men.
Oh, okay.
So you get in No Country for Old Men, you get Anton Chigurh, who is going through this who has the money, and he's going through this list. I'm going to this place, I'm looking for this guy, I'm going to the Woody Harrelson is on my way. I'm going to the big boss who's different route, and I'm going here and there. Just going through this list, just like Michael Fassbender. But the main reason why I brought it is how No Country for Old Men subverts our expectations. Um,
Mm,
I mean, here in The Killer, I think Fincher does a lot of that because this film definitely doesn't go the way that you would expect. Um, it in things like the killer botching so many things, which is, I mean, he botches the hit, but then he botches like the when he shoots with the nail gun the lawyer, where he
yeah.
expects, he's gonna last like 6 minutes, something like that, and the guy just dies, and he's
Yeah.
like, okay, this is what I was expecting.
Yeah.
Um, but you have this killer who's determined to go through the ladder until he gets to the client. I mean, he goes, you have the lawyer, you have the brood, you have the expert, and you have the client. And you expect this client to be some evil mastermind, but it isn't.
Yeah.
It's just
Right.
this goofy looking guy that doesn't know anything. They told me this and they told me that. I didn't know it. And that's our final boss. And so the film, I understand why some people would might say, this ends with a whimper instead of a bang, or how it was anticlimactic, and those are some of the criticisms that No Country for Old Men get,
Yeah.
which I love. I love No Country for Old Men. It's a great film, but I
Yeah.
understand why some people might say that, and I really think that Fincher was going for that same reaction maybe. I'm not giving you the big boss that you expect. I'm not giving you
Sure.
a big shout, a shootout, or a big climatic moment. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
ease down out of the room, just like the killer did, and just go back to uh, my big house in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Sure.
definitely got those vibes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That movie is just so amazing. Funny enough, I didn't end up putting it on my main list, but as one of the pieces that I was thinking about using, almost the same notes down the line of how you were just describing No Country for Old Men. Payback with Mel Gibson.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
haven't seen it in a
another
long
movie.
time.
Oh, it's so good. But another movie where, somebody just has to go down their list to get from one guy to the next guy to the next guy. None of them are particularly that like threatening or like, big boss like, but he's just got to go from one guy to the next and he messes up quite a bit along the way. But yeah, it kind of goes right along with what you're talking about there with No Country. But yeah, No Country amazing. I will go with I already brought up Bob Odenkirk with Better Call Saul, but I'm going to go with his movie Nobody that came out a few years ago.
Okay, haven't seen
Um,
it yet.
okay, well, it's a solid like one of these, every actor gets a John Wick type of movie lately.
Yeah,
But the thing is about that movie, even though there are some good action sequences throughout, really when it comes down to it, the whole thing is about one incredible fight scene that takes place on a bus. And this movie is really, even though there's action throughout, about that one fight scene in that house in Florida, which is just the best fight scene probably this year. It was so badass.
yeah, yeah,
And, just kind of centering a movie that is essentially about a violent person who's going to be getting into a lot of violent situations. And really, you kind of just get that one, but it's so good that you're like, you know what? Hell yeah, I'm good.
yeah, yeah.
That did it for me. I'm set. That one is good. I'm happy.
Yeah, and it's weird that he puts that big confrontation more or less towards the middle of the film, and then
Sure.
he
Yeah.
follows it with this chapter, which is a more sort of existential and talkative chapter with Tilda Swinton, who's great in the role.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Sure.
which is a very subdued chapter, and then you have this final chapter with the client, which I just mentioned. And so it's again, it's very anticlimactic and very risky for him to do
Yeah.
that. Um, but I think he pulled it out. I think I really enjoyed the film.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, what do you got next?
One that got in certain spots was the Terminator. Is
Oh, nice.
um, and you got that same thing, this killer sitting in a isolated room, waiting for the moment to get his target. He has this list, just the same killer vibe that you see with this guy. The hit goes wrong, so he has to readjust, and he has to see how he manages to fulfill his goal. So definitely, I got some Terminator vibes at some points.
I like that. Like in theory, this guy shouldn't be able to miss. Like he should be perfect. And
Yeah,
then, he kind of has to keep, fixing mistakes along the
yeah.
way. And yeah, so I love that. That's great. That's awesome. Okay, I'll go with my last one here. So I've seen a lot of people make the comparison that this movie is a bit metaphorical about Fincher's own experience as a filmmaker. It's kind of like a allegory for filmmaking. And while I don't know if I 100% buy that, the idea of that reminded me of Top Gun Maverick because that
Hmm.
movie, I am 100% convinced, is all about how that brand of old school movie star is the only person who can save the day. And Tom Cruise, of course, is that movie star. And that's what the whole movie of Top Gun Maverick is about. All these young upstarts that are all so good looking and talented and whatever. None of them hold a candle. It's really at the end of the day only Tom Cruise, an old school movie star, that can really win the day, get butts back in seats in movie theaters if you want to take it literally. So that is like a perfect version of that, of an action movie as a filmmaking metaphor. So if The Killer is about, this filmmaker who is, trying to get the perfect shots and, is trying to, deal with all these people that he has to deal with in order to get a movie made and all the just the craziness that goes on in Hollywood and, trying to be a perfectionist type of filmmaker like David Fincher is, but everything kind of screwing up and having to pick up the pieces and run with it and try to fix things on the fly. If that really is what's going on here, then Top Gun Maverick, I think, is a good comparison piece to that. So yeah, there you go.
Does that mean that the botch hit at the beginning is equivalent to Alien 3?
Yes, 100% yes.
I can
Although
see it.
I will stand up for Alien 3. I actually love
No,
that
no,
movie.
no.
So,
If we're talking about the producers' assembly cut, I'm all
mm,
for it.
awesome. Awesome. Hell yeah. So, yeah, that is my last puzzle piece.
Yeah, I had a bunch of other ones which I didn't expand on them, but for example, the opening, uh, I got vibes from Rear Window. Um, his meticulousness reminded me a bit of American Psycho, and also the use of a great soundtrack reminded me a bit of that. I had the Bourne films as well. I had Collateral, especially when he's
Yeah,
with the taxi driver. I had Seven, also in my notes.
sure, sure.
So a couple of Hitman films, but yeah, I saw a
Yeah.
bunch of parallelisms with other films. So yeah,
Yeah, those are all good ones. And I actually, when we did our trailer episode last month, I actually did mention American Psycho in the lead
yeah,
up to this one, like just based off the trailer. So yeah, I just didn't even think to bring it up again now, but I'm glad you did because it definitely fits in here. And yeah, definitely some good ones in there. So I'll read down our list of puzzle pieces and then we'll get into some closing thoughts here. We talked about Le Samurai, Thief, Kill Bill, Better Call Saul, The Day of the Jackal, Ghost Dog, The Hurt Locker, Fight Club, No Country for Old Men, Nobody, The Terminator, Top Gun Maverick, Rear Window, American Psycho, Collateral, and Seven. Obviously, lots of Hitman stuff, but a bunch of
yeah.
other stuff as well, though, mixed in there. I don't know. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything we didn't quite get to while talking puzzle pieces here?
I think I managed to get most of what I wanted to say. One thing that uh, I saw the film twice this week. I saw it a couple of like last week, and at first I really didn't know where to stand. I was left a bit cold.
Hmm.
But I think the second viewing, I rewatched it yesterday. I thought, I really want to get back to this, and I think it helped. It improved my eyes, and I think I'm more positive about it. I think it's technically impressive. We mentioned it, but Fincher is always on top of his game. The direction
Sure.
is great. The cinematography. I mentioned the use of sound and music. I thought was great. Fassbender is great. I mean, it's a fairly, I'm not gonna say simple, but I don't mean it in a bad way, but it's fairly one note. He doesn't emote
Yeah.
that much. Um, but I think it was great. And the film needs him to be great because it's all on his shoulders. The only one that I
Sure.
think shares some of the load is Tilda Swinton in that penultimate act, mostly because she has a, a, a big chunk of dialogues, and she's great. She delivers, obviously. Um, Overall, I might wish there was a bit more to it, and more to chew on.
Yeah.
But overall, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It reminded me of Panic Room, in the way that it's. I'm not gonna say it's light, but it's simpler. Panic Room is a very light film, very simple. This one is simple. It's not as heavy as something like Seven,
Hmm.
but it's also not, which I mentioned earlier, it's not as uh, one might say, quote unquote, pretentious as Mank or Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and I don't mean
Hmm.
that in a necessarily bad way, but it's more of a simple film, very lean, very stripped down, very
Yeah.
straightforward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was also thinking it almost seems like a pandemic film.
Yeah,
When, when we're spending those couple of years a couple of years ago, like, with movies that are really only like three or four characters,
yeah,
and everybody's kind of isolated most of the time. It really feels like a movie that was made during that moment, and not in a bad way. It just feels like kind of like the more clever uses of trying to make the most out of small spaces and single characters alone in spaces. And now that I think about it, I hadn't really thought about this before, but we're talking about this being again not a return to form, but maybe a return to what we think of when we think of David Fincher. But I don't think any of his movies have been so based on one character before. Like, in Fight Club, even Panic Room, even all these movies that they usually have pretty big casts of characters. And really, when it comes down to it, I mean, Tilda Swinton's got her scene, Charles Parnell has his scene or two. It's mostly just the Fassbender show for this whole movie.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of a new thing for him.
Maybe Mank, but yeah, I can agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that does it for The Killer. I think we got into a lot of good stuff there. Carlo, is there another movie you watched recently you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
Oh man, let me think about what I've seen. I've been watching some noirs, film noirs. Trying to get like, in November.
Yeah,
Uh, Crisscross with Burt Lancaster was really very dark and very bleak film noir, and I really enjoyed it. And just I don't know if this will jinx me, but I'm about to have a guest on my show that is very it's something that's surprising, but I'm gonna have I'm not hoping not to jinx it, but I'm gonna have one of the co-directors of the Blair Witch Project, and I've been
nice.
getting into is Eduardo Sanchez, and I've been getting into his filmography. He's had a very independent filmography after Blair Witch. He's been pretty much like shying away from big stuff, and he's
Yeah.
done a couple of very low key horror films. And I've watched three of his films, and they've all been really interesting. Not, I wouldn't say they were great,
Hmm.
but they were most of them have been really interesting takes on, for example, Bigfoot, alien abductions,
Yeah.
possessions.
Hmm.
Some interesting approaches to those topics that aren't what one would expect. They were again interesting approaches to
Yeah.
those topics, so I would recommend them. So
Yeah,
just
no,
look,
I have a lot of friends like in the horror community that like really love his post Blair Witch work. And like I actually haven't seen like any of that stuff. I'd love to check out some of it though, and that's awesome that you're going to be getting a chance to talk to him. I look forward to hearing that for sure.
yeah, let's
Right
cross my
on.
fingers.
Yes, I am sure that all of that's going to go down awesomely. Tell people where they could find you and the podcast, where they're going to be able to hear that.
Well, I've been doing the movie loot for almost 4 years now. In January, February is our fourth anniversary. So it's been 4 years. You can find the movie loot on any podcasting platform. You can find me at on Twitter is where I'm most active at TIFCGT, or the podcast at TMML 2021. And uh, the show is very sometimes very hard to pin down, but it's just our goal is to share the best, greatest, most entertaining, and or weirdest film that you could find. We dedicate episodes to certain topics. We also bring guests like David, who has been twice
Mm-hmm.
in the show, just to pick a random set of categories and just watch whatever comes. That's our loot. And like I always say, I guarantee that anybody that listens to the show will walk away with at least one worthy film recommendation from our loot. That's something that I guarantee. I think there's always at least one, be it from my
Yeah,
loot or from my guest loot. So yeah,
absolutely. I think we talked about some really good stuff on that last one.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, for sure. Everybody check that out. I'll put a link in the show notes. And Carlo, thank you so much. Hopefully it won't be another 2.5 years before the next time you're back on.
No, definitely. Thank you for having me again. It was a blast.
Hey, it's Ashley Ray, and I host the podcast TV I Say. Have you ever referred to television as your friend? Do you want 10 more seasons of And Just Like That? Did you rewatch every episode of King of Queens in 2020? Then this is the podcast for you. Join me and a new guest each week to discuss your favorite TV shows and my 90 Day Fiancé hot takes and my Below Deck hot takes and basically all my TV hot takes. Listen to TV I Say wherever you listen to your podcasts.
All right. So I hope you enjoyed that conversation about The Killer. Thanks to Carlo for joining me, and thanks to all of you for listening. If you're enjoying piecing it together, of course, make sure you are subscribed wherever it is that you're listening. And maybe drop us a little 5-star rating and review. That would be nice and very helpful as it gets the show seen and heard by more people. And that's what we want to do here, right? You could also follow us on social media at Piecing Pods. Join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces. And check out that Patreon I told you about at the top of the show, the Produced by David Rosen Patreon at patreon.com/bydavidrosen if you'd like to support the show in that way. So I always close these out with a piece of my music, usually my instrumental music, but once in a rare while I will dip back into my previous life as a comedy rapper. And how could I not do that on an episode about a movie called The Killer when I have a song called I'm a Killa, Hey, from my comedy rap group D-Mize Dee. So I'm going to play that and then never speak of it again. But enjoy it, and we'll be back with more piecing it together real soon.
I'm a killer, hey, I'm a killer, 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 hey, ha, I'm a killer, killing everybody 'cause it's just what I do, hey, ha, I'm a killer, killing everybody and I'm gonna kill you too, hey, ha, I'm a killer, killing everybody 'cause it's just what I do, hey, ha, I'm a killer, killing everybody and I'm gonna kill you too. I'm a killer, hey, and you're nothing. Fuck with me if you want, but you know I'm not bluffing. If you heard of me, you heard of MC Ren and Jewish Dave, and you know that we be putting motherfuckers in the grave. As a matter of fact, you know what? Fuck rap. All I really wanna do is peel motherfuckers' wigs back and make them hurt, make them die, make them bleed out of the eyes, make them beg for their lives on the last night of their lives. This is killer rap. It's kinda my thing, making my enemies die and making beats that bang. Death to everyone who isn't one of my pups. I'm a crazy motherfucker from my brain to my nuts. My favorite thing about life is stabbing people to death. I fucking murder everybody till there's nobody left. I'ma do it till I die, which means probably forever, right? Here's a new song that you can take to your next life. Hey, ha, I'm a killer, killing everybody 'cause it's just what I do. Hey, ha, I'm a killer, killing everybody and I'm gonna kill you too. Hey, ha, I'm a killer, killing everybody 'cause it's just what I do. Hey, ha, I'm a killer, killing everybody and I'm gonna kill you too.
Only 3 things guaranteed in life, yo, what's that? Death, taxes, and demise with a knife. You can try if you like, but you gon' end up dead. Or at least you'll be missing a head, or an arm, or a heart, or any other body part. It's hard for me to stop killing once I start. All they'll find is entrails, fucking covered with semen. You better think twice before you slide into my DM. I'm the demon hiding in your closet under your bed. Eyes glowing and my teeth are all red. I'm the noise you hear when you think you're home alone, and then I'll haunt your dreams, say you think you can't go on. You call the suicide hotline, I'll pick up the phone, but I won't get off the line until your brains is blown. I'm the thriller, a gorilla, a motherfucking caterpillar, but for real I'm a motherfucking killer.
Hey, ha, I'm a killer, killing everybody 'cause it's just what I do. Hey, ha, I'm a killer, killing everybody and I'm gonna kill you too. Hey, ha, I'm a killer, killing everybody 'cause it's just what I do. Hey, ha, I'm a killer, killing everybody and I'm gonna kill you too. I'm a killer, hey, I'm a killer, 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 I'm a killer, hey, I'm a killer.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.